Hey guys, I apologize in advance for the awkward angle of the cameras and the bright lights and everything, but this is the best I can do with what I'm working with. So, yes, just wanted to introduce the first lesson that you guys had, which was from Chapter 2, Lesson 4, and it's multiplication patterns. And the objective of the lesson is for you to see the patterns that are used when you are multiplying a digit by base 10 ultimately. So the first example that you have in example 1 is what they want you to see is these patterns. So first, 1 times any number is going to give you itself. So right here we have 2 times 1, which will give us 2. Okay, so then we move on to the next example. Again, find your basic multiplication, which is 1 times 2, which is going to give us 2 again. But then notice you have a 0, so however many zeros you have, you add them to your product. Okay, so let's look at another one. So again, we have our basic multiplication, which is 1 times 2, which will give us 2. And then notice we have 1, 2 zeros. So that means our product is going to have 2 zeros as well. Okay, looking at our next one. Again, find your basic multiplication fact, which is going to be 1 times 2, which will give us 2. And then count how many zeros you have, which in this case is 1, 2, 3. So since there's 3 zeros, that means there's going to be 3 zeros in your product. Okay, and then here's one more example that I added, which is not in the book, but I added it. And again, you find your basic multiplication, which is 1 times 22 in this case. And 1 times 22 is 22. And then you count how many zeros you have. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And then you put your commas accordingly. Okay? All right, so the next example that you will have is this one. So what you'll have is a number, and then you'll have a 10, which also has an exponent. So this 2 that's kind of hanging in the air is called an exponent. Now what an exponent means is this. This number right here is called your base number. So all an exponent means is your base, and then since it's 2, that means your base 2 times, okay? So in this case, we would multiply 10 times 10, okay? So then we bring down our 13, we bring down our multiplication table, and then 10 times 10 is the same thing as 100. So essentially this problem then turns into 13 times 100. And then if we think back to what we just learned, we have our basic multiplication, which is 1 times 13, which is going to give us 13. And then we have 2 zeros. So you add your 2 zeros and end up with 1,300. Another way that you can look at this problem is like this. Find your basic multiplication, which is 1 times 13, and then look at your exponent. That 2 is telling you, since we're working with a base of 10, that 2 is telling you this is how many zeros you're going to have in your answer. So in our case, we would add 2 zeros. Okay? Last example that you could possibly have today for your assignment is something like this, where instead of working with 1, they will give you, 2 different multiples other than 1. Factors, sorry, 2 factors other than 1. So I usually identify my most basic facts, which is in this case 4 and 7. So 4 times 7 I know is 28. So there's my 28, and then I would count how many zeros I have. And in this case, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then how I know where to add my commas is I work backwards, and every 3 numbers is where I put my comma. So 1, 2, 3, comma. All right. I know this is a very simplified version of what to do, but if you have any questions, you can either leave them for me in the comments, you can email me personally, or yeah, you can do either one of those two, and you can always rewind this video as many times as you need in order to clear up anything that you misunderstood. Okay, I will be submitting the next video very shortly for those of you that are ready to continue on with the second lesson.